The good thing about beer is that beer's not wine, so there's not a lot of rules.
I guess a good thing.
We get wine, equal play at our dinner table. I really like wine, but people tell you you're doing things wrong a lot with wine, and I don't think anybody should tell you that about beer. So, but a couple of sort of guidelines for when you're tasting a beer, especially if it's one you're not familiar with. You can see on the handout we've got here. We talk about temperature, that's more about how to serve beer than how to taste beer, but if you taste, say, a lager, which most mass-produced beers are lagers, those are meant to be served really cold. They're fermented cold, they're stored cold, and they come out best when they're cold. But ales, which all beer is half and half of them are lagers, half of them are ales, they're meant to be served a little warmer, it allows their flavors to come out a little better. So, if I look over our beer list for today, the only thing we have on tap that is a lager is our Dark Helm and Schwartz beer. Everything else is an ale. Most of the beers that we brew are ales, which should be served a little warmer. It allows the malt flavors to come out better. So just kind of try to be aware, and if you're serving an ale and it's in your fridge, which is a little too cold because you want it to be about 45 Fahrenheit, you can get it out a little bit before you serve it and let it warm up a little, or even just let it warm up in the glass and those flavors will kind of open up. Glassware, use some. It doesn't matter too much what kind you use, but if you're drinking straight out of the bottle or can, the opening is so small that you can't smell the beverage, and most of what you taste is your sense of smell. So the first step there, besides pouring it, is going to be to swirl it and smell it, so that'll give you the best flavor of the beer. Notice also it says head is good. When you pour a beer, you want some head on it. Those bubbles, the carbonation brings the flavor and aroma up out of the beer for you. And then once you get a beer, a lot like wine, if you've got room in your glass, you want to swirl it a little bit, and you'll see that raises a little bit of carbonation. Those bubbles come up, and then stick your nose right in there and give it a smell. And just pay attention to what you smell and think in sort of non-beer terms about the flavor. This beer we've got here is our All-Star Brew, which is an American cream ale. It's a beer brewed with malted barley and actually a good proportion of flaked corn, which is real traditional in pre-prohibition brewing. And then it's got a little bit of hop flavor. So if I smell this one, I get just a little bit of caramel sweetness. I get kind of an herbal hop flavor, almost like oregano. Maybe even a little bit of citrus. We have some citrusy American hops in it. And then once you smell it, then have a taste. And when you drink some of the beer, let it sit on your palate for just a second before you swallow it, and that'll really let the flavors develop. With this one, I think it starts out with a little more hop flavor, but then it kind of finishes with a real grainy, malty flavor. We actually use a little bit of unmalted grain in here, so it's almost sort of a bready, grainy flavor. So just kind of, you don't have to do it in that order, you don't have to worry too much about it, but if you really want to sort of examine the beer that you're drinking, just take a little time to think about it. It'll help you think about the flavors in the beer. And then we talked too on this about how to pair your beer and food. So we talked about analyzing the food and the beer, just like you would with tasting food, which we're all pretty familiar with. You want to look for similarities, you want to look for contrasts. So if you try like the beer bread that's in front of you, the bready malt that's in this beer is going to be a good complement to the breadiness of the bread. And then looking for contrast, there's a little bit of bitterness in this beer that isn't in the bread. The bread's kind of sweet, so you have those sort of contrasts, and just kind of look for those contrasts and similarities. And if you look down at the bottom line at the bottom of the page is to drink beer you like and eat food you like, and you probably aren't going to go wrong as well.